Hey, Greg, thanks for joining me.
Great to be here. Thanks, Michael.
Gregg Hunter, President and CEO of the Christian Camp and Conference Association, is our guest today. I wanted to have you on, Greg, to discuss Christian camps in general, but obviously wanted to have you on to discuss it in light of the tragedy in Texas this summer, where there was a Christian camp, Camp Mystic, where tragically several young girls died in the flooding there. Now, Camp Mystic is not affiliated with the CCCA. Wanted to say that up front, but I'm sure you still had parents reaching out to you and other Christian camps in general, just wanting to know, is this safe for my daughter? And is this worth it? Or my son as well. How have you responded to concerned parents during this time who are asking those questions about their sons and daughters? Should I send my kid to camp?
Well, certainly. So most parents who had kids registered to go to camp and were planning to send them, they would reach out to the camp that they're going to sooner than they would reach to the association. But we had the opportunity to talk with a number of national media and let them know what the camps are doing, what parents are doing. You may be surprised, though. There was one camp leader that I spoke to shortly after the tragedy in Texas. I said, "Are you getting a lot of calls?" He said, "We have 3,000 kids registered to come to our camp this summer. We've already started, and I've gotten one call." I was a bit surprised because, Michael, like you, I'm a parent. My kids are grown. I am a grandfather as well. And I would suggest that my wife and I might have been making those calls. We might have been the one to say, can you ensure me that camp is going to be safe for my kids? Some members told me that they got a lot of calls and a lot of emails saying, "Hey, what are you doing?" The one that got one call said pretty quickly, "We're not in a floodplain. We're not in a high risk area of other natural disasters." So that, again, that sort of is a pre-qualifier for them and may explain why they only received one call.
Hmm. That's helpful. My daughter, by the way, went to a Christian camp this summer, and she went after that tragedy. So, I was thinking not necessarily about floods, but she was in a camp that's in Tornado Alley. And so I started thinking, okay, what would happen during that camp that week if they had a tornado or if they had a warning? Let's talk about positives that might be emerging from this tragedy. How are camps maybe turning this into something good that might, I don't know, might make camps safer, might help parents understand what camps do to keep their kids safe? How is this maybe being used for good?
Well, I can tell you that camp leaders, and I've been in my role 15 years, and I was a camp kid decades ago. But I know the camp leaders that I know already believe that safety is priority one at camp, because if you don't provide a safe environment for kids and bad things happen, word will get around and you'll be finished. And so they know they must do everything they reasonably can to keep kids as safe as possible at camp. But something that your folks might be encouraged by is that I would ask one. I said, "So what are you doing in light of? What are you and your team doing in light of the tragedy in Texas?" They said, "We have taken our safety protocols that we find robust already, and we have overlaid the tragedy in Texas on top of it as much as we know." And there was a lot that was known. And we're asking ourselves, what would we do in that situation? And I bet hundreds of leaders were doing the same thing. Certainly, dozens that I talked to were doing the same thing. And where necessary, they were saying, "You know what, let's get the team together and do a little training. Let's do a half hour, an hour of training when we can, to ensure that if something were to happen along those lines, everyone knows where to go, to whom to turn, what communication tools to use, and that kind of thing." Well, another thing that I feel like some that are exemplary will continue to be an example for other camps at this time. So, for example, one camp in Minnesota said of our 100 or so summer staff, they are all equipped with CB radios that are turned on 24/7. They're not dependent on cell coverage. They're not dependent on electricity for communication and emergency use. And so some others might look at that and say, we're not quite that robust. Maybe we should be. He also said the senior staff have NOAA weather radios. That's the National Oceanic and Atmospheric Administration. weather radios and lightning strike detectors in their offices and homes. Another camp told me they use real-time monitoring on a dedicated NOAA computer that's sitting in their office so that NOAA radar and alerts can track any severe storm and weather. And so those are the kinds of things that I think people might be looking at. Those who have it already are making sure that the systems are in line for next season or throughout the school year. And I think others are saying, what could we do in the situation that we heard about in Texas? How can we make ourselves even stronger in that area?
That's good to know. That's good to know. I was wanting to change kind of the tone here of the conversation and talking about, let's talk about just Christian camps in general, because we're living in a digital age and Christian camps are kind of the opposite of that. This is not a camp. Most camps are not, video game camps. They're camps to get away from all that stuff. So how have Christian camps functioned and maybe changed over the years to teach this new generation of kids about Christ who are growing up in a digital age, and to help them disconnect from the world?
Well, we get to serve about 850 camps across the country. There are members of our association, and I don't know of one, although there may be one exception, that doesn't ask kids to turn in their technology and go tech free for a week. For some who legitimately have tech addiction, it's a hard thing to hand over their device that they're used to looking at 7 or 8 hours a day. But camp still, these days, when there's that tech addiction, but also with such high levels of anxiety and depression and suicidal ideation among kids, even in the church, that camp provides this wonderful opportunity for them to break away from whatever it is that they live in day to day, certainly from their daily routine and even habits or addictions, and to spend time in creation with caring adults. And while they're there, they can learn new skills, experience adventures. They get to have victory in taking safe risks. Things like horseback riding or rappelling or ropes courses that generally a lot of kids don't have in their backyard. And camp provides these benefits in a concentrated space and in a time and a way that can truly change lives. And I'm one of those that was changed decades ago at a Christian camp.
Yeah, I tell my kids all the time, we weren't, God didn't make us to live in front of a screen. And that's why just getting in nature and getting outside has such a dramatic change on our soul and our just how we think in general, and on our attitude. I guess that's one way to put it. I know that I mentioned my daughter previously. She's 13 now, and one of the cool things that the camp that I sent her to, this is the second year in a row we've done it, is you can write her letters. You can write your child letters, and so I wrote her 5 letters, and she opened one each day. And that's something that I don't do during the year. I don't write her physical letters. We text and talk, but we don't write physical letters. That's something that we've kind of lost. That's an art we've lost as a society. We need to get back to.
Yeah.
You yourself, Gregg, credit Christian camps with really having a big impact on your own spiritual journey. Tell me about that and how it changed your own spiritual growth.
Sure. Well, I grew up in a non-Christian home that I would say was pretty moral. And my dad was in law enforcement. My mom worked at the elementary school. We just didn't go to church. There's no mention of God in our day-to-day routine. By the time I was a teenager, I was the youngest of 3 boys, and I'd hit a pretty strong rebellious streak, and I was angry, felt unloved and maybe even unlovable. I was into partying and doing all kinds of things that kids of the world are drawn to. And yet I was still lonely and hurting, but would just take that out. Sometimes I was the verbal bully that would make kids' lives miserable. And so a young life leader noticed me because I was a bit loud and obnoxious and attention seeking, and he befriended me and convinced me to go to camp when I was 17, between my junior and senior year of high school. I told him I couldn't go at first because I had to work to afford my car and my clothes and things like that. He said, "What if I can get you a scholarship?" So I usually say thank you to Mrs. Herman, who allowed me to weed her garden, and then she wrote a check so I could go to camp the first time. And it was there in that setting. I talked a minute ago about the setting that camp provides. but I wish that I had words that actually described when I left camp after a week. I felt like I was being deported from heaven because the environment was so loving. It was beautiful, gorgeous, one of the most beautiful spots that I've been to on earth. But there was this love and acceptance from the leaders. Even the kids seemed nicer. Then there was a message daily about how God loved me and about the problem of sin and how God had an answer to that. And some refer to it as the greatest love story ever told. And that was God saying to me, as well as to you and everyone here, um, I love you and I want a relationship with you. And God saying, even I sent my son to die for you. And it was what he went through going to the cross, the story that was told, that I said, I can't even believe someone would do that for me. And so when I responded and gave him my life, I felt like I was giving him a dirty sweat sock, saying, "What if my life is worth that much to you? You can have the rest of it," and handed it back to him, saying, "Okay, make of it what you can." Well, he did change me dramatically, but I give camp I mean, a camp is a piece of land, and it's a set of buildings, and it's a program put on by people who love God and love kids, so it wasn't the piece of property. It was a setting provided for me to put that other stuff behind me that I mentioned earlier, habits and uh, tendencies and so forth, that I could say, I'm ready. I want to give all that up because I could see a vision of not just eternity that was promised, but a vision of what my life might be like. And so I gave my life to Christ at camp. That's why I say sometimes I'm not just the leader of an association of Christian camps, I'm a product of their ministry. And I really believe in the power of camp.
As we begin to close here, Greg, I want to give you the opportunity to sell the concept of camps just in general. You kind of discussed that earlier when we were talking about how they work in a digital age. But there are parents out there and families and maybe even kids who wonder, what is the point of camp when we have church? And I wondered that as well. When I remember when I was a teenager, I didn't want to go to camp. Some kids are like that. They don't want to go to camp. They don't want to. You're kind of a home kid. You're fine at home. You don't want to challenge yourself. You just want to stay at home. What would you say to someone who says, what is the general point of camp in the first place?
Well, I think there are two ways to look at that, Michael. One is factual and numerical, even, and one is purely of the heart. The factual numerical piece is that some camps, like the one I went to, as part of a ministry outreach to non-church kids, that say between 33 and 40% of kids who go to camp make a first-time commitment to Jesus. I can't think of a church. I've been going to church now for decades too. Can't think of a church where 33 to 40% of the youth group kids on Wednesdays or Sunday mornings give their life to Jesus. So just numerically, it makes a lot of sense. There's something special about this environment where kids like me are willing to stop and hear the voice of God and let him speak to my heart and give my life to him. So just numerically, camp is powerful at introducing people to Jesus. On the other hand, I mean, in addition, the second piece is that truly it's in a setting where you are disconnected from the things that keep you from thinking of God. I sometimes describe it this way: that I went to camp with my eyes on my feet just in front of me. I could think to what I'm going to do this Friday night. I wasn't thinking long term. I wasn't certainly thinking really about what kind of person do I want to be, and do I want to really carry who I am now into the future? Ultimately, I decided no, I didn't want to be. But camp provided that opportunity for me to be disconnected from my regular routine and to give me the opportunity to pause and reflect. If your kids are Christians and they believe in the Bible, they believe in God, and they want to grow close to Him, I still hear from Christian kids and their families, my kid came home different, because there's an opportunity for kids to make their faith their own. Mom and dad, their faith can't be yours. Their relationship with God is theirs. And camp is such a beautiful place where they kind of get it a lot of times and say, you know what, I learned that I need to follow Jesus myself, not on mom and dad's coattails. I'm going to follow Jesus now. And their life has changed from that point forward.
We live in the most distracted world I think any society has ever lived in. We can wake up and go to bed and never think of God, because we are always um, being pulled in one or other, one direction or the other direction, by social media, by text alerts, by everything, and in this digital age. And so I think camps are a way to make us be still and know that I am God, as the verse says in Scripture. And so I think they just serve an amazing, it's an amazing tool, I think, that parents can use to help their kids grow spiritually. The website of the Christian Camp and Conference Association is ccca.org, ccca.org. Gregg, as we close, what do you want people to know about either your organization or just Christian camps in general?
Yeah, I would love for them to research the camps nearby that are within their driving range for kids to go to. I would suggest that parents contact the camps. First, you could look on their website, do the research that you can, but call them up and ask them if you have any concerns about how your child might adapt if they've never been to camp. Leaders at Christian camps are not offended by your questions. Even if you ask, what are your safety protocols? They're not offended by that. They love God. They love kids. They want to connect your kids with God in an environment that they're shepherding now. And so I would encourage parents to reach out and to look for a camp that would be perfect for your child.
My daughter is ready to go to camp next year. Again, this will be her third year coming up this summer, so I can speak to the impact of them, and I know that she always comes back a better kid. I think that's the best way that I can put it. Gregg, thank you so much.
Thank you.